AITA for walking away after my girlfriend said another man made her feel wanted? I'm Christian, 40, and after 11 years as her husband, I still knew the small things. How she left half-finished coffee on the counter, how she hated cold fries, how she could say I'm fine in 6 different ways and mean none of them. For a long time, I told myself those little details meant we still had something worth saving. Rachel was 38, smart, funny when she wanted to be, and the kind of person who could make a room feel warmer just by deciding to participate in it. That was part of what made the last year so hard. She was not always cruel. She was not always distant. Sometimes she would lean against the counter in old sweatpants, eating cereal at midnight, and for 5 minutes she would sound like the woman I married. Then the next morning, she would look at me like I was a piece of furniture she had outgrown. Our marriage had never been some wild, movie-style romance. It was steady. Groceries on Sundays, bad TV after dinner, inside jokes that stopped being funny to other people years ago but still worked on us. I used to think boring meant loyal. Rachel started saying it like it meant dead. You make everything feel so planned, she told me one night while I was rinsing plates after dinner. I said, I thought you liked that I handled things. She gave this small laugh that did not reach her face. That is exactly what I mean. You handle things. You don't feel them. I remember drying my hands on a dish towel and just standing there, unsure what answer would not make things worse. If I said I did feel things, she would call it defensive. If I stayed quiet, she would call it proof. That became the pattern. Normal questions started getting treated like accusations. One Tuesday, I asked if she wanted me to save her dinner because she had not texted and it was getting late. She walked in at 9:30, dropped her purse on the chair, and said, "Don't start controlling me." I looked at the covered plate on the counter. Chicken, rice, broccoli, already cold. I asked if you wanted dinner, I said. You asked where I was. No, Rachel. I asked if you wanted dinner. She rolled her eyes and went upstairs. A month before that, I would have followed her. I would have tried to smooth it over, asked what I said wrong, apologized for whatever tone she thought she heard. By then, I had started noticing something. She was not reacting to what I said. She was reacting to a version of me she seemed to be building somewhere else. Her phone started staying face down. She changed her passcode and acted insulted that I noticed, even though I had not asked for it. She began taking calls in the garage, stepping outside with the excuse that the house felt stuffy, disappearing for drives that lasted 2 hours. When I asked, gently, if everything was okay, she said, I just need room to breathe. So I gave her room. Too much room, probably. That was my weakness in our marriage. I wanted peace badly enough to confuse it with patience. I thought if I stayed calm, if I did not push, if I let her have whatever space she said she needed, eventually she would come back to herself. Instead, she used the quiet to write a story I was not allowed to read. The first concrete thing was a banking notification on a Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of water, half watching some documentary I was not really interested in, when my phone buzzed. A charge from our joint checking account. A restaurant I had never been to. $87 and change. Rachel had told me she needed to drive around alone to clear her head. I stared at the notification longer than I should have. $87 was not a fortune. It was not proof of anything by itself. Maybe she had eaten alone. Maybe she had met Alicia, her sister. Maybe she had forgotten to mention it because talking to me had become such a terrible burden. When Rachel came home, she smelled faintly like perfume she only wore when she wanted to feel noticed. I kept my voice even. Did you stop somewhere to eat? Her eyes snapped to me. Why? There was a charge from our account. I just wanted to make sure it was you. Why are you auditing me now? I'm asking about a charge from our account. See? This is what I mean. She kicked off one heel, then the other. Everything is a report with you. Everything is numbers and checking and watching. I could have argued. I wanted to. But the way she said watching made something in me go still. So I nodded and said, okay. That bothered her more than anger would have. The next clue was not something I went looking for. It arrived in an old shared email account we used years earlier for household stuff. Travel confirmations, insurance documents, furniture deliveries, random subscriptions we never bothered changing. I still checked it once a week because bills sometimes wandered in there. The subject line was plain enough. Reservation confirmed. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw Rachel's first name. Then the last 4 digits of our joint card. Then the date. It matched the night she told me she had driven around until midnight because she could not stand being in the house. The reservation was for a small roadside motel. 1 room, 1 night. I sat in the dark at the kitchen table with the blue light of the laptop on my face, and I felt something inside me split cleanly in two. One half of me was the husband who wanted to run upstairs and demand answers. The other half, the quieter half, understood that Rachel had been preparing for that exact moment. She wanted a reaction. Maybe she needed one. I closed the laptop without printing anything yet. Then I opened it again, downloaded the email as a PDF, took a screenshot, and saved it in a folder with the date. That was the night my silence stopped being avoidance. I started checking the timeline. Not stalking. Not following her. Not breaking into anything that was not already ours. I looked at bank statements from the joint account. I checked the old shared email. I opened the unused tablet we both used to keep in the kitchen for recipes and streaming, the one still connected to message sync from before Rachel decided privacy only mattered when it protected her. Deleted messages did not fully disappear from previews. Not all of them. Not right away. At first, it was enough to confirm what my stomach already knew. Mason. I knew the name vaguely. He was someone Rachel had mentioned in passing as part of a circle of people she had been hanging around more often. He was 42, had a partner named Dana, and from the tone of his messages, he liked being chased as long as nothing serious was required from him. Rachel's texts to him were full of things I hated reading, but could have survived knowing. I keep thinking about last night. He has no idea. You make me feel alive. Those hurt. Of course they hurt. I am not made of stone, no matter what Rachel later tried to sell people. I remember sitting on the edge of the spare bed because I did not trust my knees, holding that tablet with both hands while my chest felt like it had a weight strapped around it. But the affair was not the worst part. The worst part came 3 nights later, when I found a thread that had only partially synced before she deleted it. Rachel had written, "If he finally snaps, they'll all understand why I had to leave." Mason replied, "Just don't let it get messy for me. Rachel, he won't do anything crazy. He'll just get quiet and intense, and everyone will see what I mean." Mason, "I can't have Dana dragged into this." Rachel, "I'm telling people I'm scared to even bring it up. Alicia already thinks he's controlling." Mason, "Good. Just keep me out of the family stuff." I read those messages so many times the words stopped looking like English. The affair hurt. The planning hurt worse. Rachel was not just unhappy. She was not just lonely. She was creating a version of me before I even had the chance to confront her. Cold. Controlling. Dangerous. The kind of husband people whisper about after the wife leaves, and everyone says they always sensed something was off. I thought back to the way Alicia had looked at me at a family dinner 2 weeks before, tight smile, short answers. I remembered one of Rachel's friends texting her while we were on the couch and Rachel angling the screen away with a little smirk. I remembered Rachel saying, "You don't know what it feels like to be afraid of someone's silence." At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. Now I understood she was rehearsing. I did not confront her that night. I did not trust myself enough. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I was terrified she would turn even a raised voice into a weapon. So I did what Rachel always mocked me for. I made a file. Not a revenge dump. Not some wild folder full of every ugly word she had ever said. I organized it by date. Joint account charges. The restaurant receipt. The motel confirmation. Screenshots from the synced messages. A short timeline of what Rachel told me versus what the records showed. I did not include anything intimate. I did not include embarrassing photos. I did not post anything anywhere. I also spoke to an attorney for a short consultation. I did not ask how to destroy Rachel. I asked what I could do to protect myself without creating problems later. The attorney's advice was simple. Document. Do not threaten. Do not empty accounts. Do not stop paying shared obligations. Do not harass the other man. Do not blast anything online. Protect your income, keep records, and communicate in writing where possible. Then she said something that stuck with me. Protect yourself. Don't punish her in a way a court can punish you for later. So I redirected my paycheck into a separate account. I kept enough in the joint checking account for the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, and anything we were both responsible for. I canceled the discretionary things I had been quietly covering for Rachel. Subscriptions, beauty boxes, extra app charges, and a couple of personal payments that had nothing to do with shared bills. It was not revenge. It was a boundary. Rachel noticed within 48 hours. I was making coffee when she came into the kitchen holding her phone. Did you cancel my account? Which one? Don't do that. Her voice sharpened. You know which one. I poured coffee into a mug and set the pot back. I canceled charges I was paying that were not household expenses. So now you're punishing me financially. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes a little too bright. Her shoulders already squared like she had expected the fight and planned her lines. The joint account still has money for every shared bill, I said. You have your income. You have access to essentials. I'm not funding personal extras while you accuse me of controlling you for noticing where our money goes. Her face changed for half a second. Not guilt. Calculation. You're proving my point, she said. No, I said. I'm ending the part where I pay for the story you're telling about me. She stared at me for a long moment. What is that supposed to mean? It means I'm not as confused as you think I am. That was the first time I saw fear crack through her confidence. A few days later, Rachel suggested dinner. We need to talk like adults, she said, standing in the doorway of the living room. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because there was something absurd about hearing that from someone who had spent weeks planting landmines around a conversation she claimed to want. Still, I agreed. We went to a quiet restaurant with dark booths and soft lighting, the kind of place we used to choose for anniversaries when we wanted to pretend we were fancier than we were. Rachel barely touched her food. She pushed asparagus around her plate and kept glancing at my hands. I noticed that. Once you understand someone is waiting for you to become a character, you start noticing what kind of scene they are trying to direct. Halfway through dinner, she set down her fork. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. She inhaled like she was preparing for a performance. I've been seeing someone. I kept my eyes on hers. His name is Mason, she said, and I could tell she expected the name to land like a slap. And before you say anything, I know it was wrong. But he makes me feel wanted in a way you don't. He makes me feel alive. You make everything feel like a spreadsheet, Christian. Mason made me feel like someone actually saw me. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Her eyes flicked to my hands again. How long? I asked. She blinked, disappointed by the question. Does it matter? Yes. Months, she said. Did you use our money? Her mouth tightened. I can't believe that's where your mind goes. Did you? This is exactly what I'm talking about. I tell you something painful, and you turn it into a bank statement. I leaned back slightly. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat, but my voice stayed calm. Are you waiting for me to yell so you can tell people I scared you? The color moved in her face. Just a little. Wow, she whispered. That is such a manipulative thing to say. Rachel. No, really. You sit there like ice, and somehow I'm still the cruel one. You are cruel, I said. You just expected me to be louder about it. The server came by, saw both our faces, and asked if we needed anything else. Rachel said no in a voice that sounded almost sweet. I asked for the check. That made Rachel angry in a way my silence had not. That's it, she said. You're just going to pay and leave? Yes. 11 years, and that's all I get. I signed a receipt. My hand did not shake, though every part of me wanted to fall apart somewhere private. I'm not going to perform the breakdown you rehearsed, I said. She stared at me like I had slapped her. I stood, took my coat, and left her sitting in the booth with the dessert menu still tucked between the salt and pepper shakers. I slept in the spare room that night. Slept is too generous a word. I lay there and watched the ceiling change from black to gray while my phone stayed face down on the nightstand. Sometime around 2 a.m., Rachel came to the doorway. You don't even care, she said. I did not sit up. Go to bed. You are proving everything I said. Then stop talking to me from the hallway and put it in writing. She made a small sound, something between a scoff and a sob, then walked away. By morning, the story had already escaped the house. My phone started buzzing before I had finished brushing my teeth. Alicia texted first. I cannot believe you treated her like that after she finally told you the truth. Then one of Rachel's close friends. Cold doesn't even begin to describe it. She was terrified to talk to you, and you proved why. Then another. Financial control is abuse, Christian. You don't get to punish her because she was honest. I stood in the bathroom with toothpaste still in my mouth, reading messages from people who had not asked me a single question before deciding what kind of man I was. Rachel had not just told them she cheated. She had told them she confessed bravely to a loveless, intimidating husband who sat there like ice because he had never cared. She told them I had been restricting money, monitoring her spending, making her feel afraid to speak. The group chat came next. Rachel's family chat, plus 2 friends she had apparently added because if you are going to build a courtroom, you need an audience. Alicia wrote, "Christian, you need to explain why you cut her off financially." Rachel wrote, "I don't want this to turn ugly. I just want everyone to understand what I've been dealing with." That line did something to me. Not because it was the worst lie, but because it was so polished. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally I wrote, "Rachel, tell them the part you left out, or I will." The chat went quiet for almost a full minute. Then Rachel replied, "There it is. The threat." Alicia jumped in. "Christian, do not intimidate her." I wrote, "I am not threatening anyone. I am giving Rachel the chance to correct an incomplete story before I provide the missing context to the people she involved." Rachel responded immediately, "Normal husbands don't make files on their wives." I looked at that message for a long time. Then I wrote, "Normal wives don't plan to frame their husbands for reacting." No one answered that. 10 minutes later, Tom called me. Rachel's father had always been quiet in the way some older men are quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are deciding whether words will help. He had never been overly warm with me, but he had been fair. "Christian," he said, voice low, "what is going on? Rachel hasn't told you the full truth." He sighed. "She says you have been cold. She says you cut off money. The joint bills are paid. She has access to essentials. I stopped paying for personal extras after I found charges connected to her affair." There was a pause. "Connected how?" he asked. "Restaurant. Motel. Messages." Another pause, longer this time. "Do you have proof?" "Yes." I hated that word in that context. Proof. Like my marriage had become an insurance dispute. Tom said, "Rachel is here. Alicia is here too. If this is going to keep spreading, come over and say what you need to say. No shouting. No circus." I almost said no. Then my phone buzzed again with another message calling me abusive, and I realized the circus had already started. I was just not in the tent yet. I printed the folder before I left. Not everything. Just enough. A timeline. For bank charges from the joint account. The motel confirmation. A few text excerpts showing the affair, the plan, and Mason's refusal to be involved if things got messy. I blacked out anything that did not need to be seen. No intimate details. No unnecessary humiliation. I also prepared the same limited packet as a PDF and sent it to myself so I could forward it if Rachel tried to claim I had fabricated paper copies. When I got to Tom's house, Rachel was at the kitchen table with Alicia beside her. Her eyes were red, but not swollen. That detail stuck with me for some reason. She looked like someone who had been crying just enough to be believed. Tom stood near the sink with his arms crossed. Rachel's mother was there too, quiet and pale, one hand wrapped around a coffee mug she was not drinking from. Alicia looked at me like I had kicked down the door. "You better not come in here trying to scare her," she said. I set the folder on the kitchen table. "Before everyone decides I'm the villain," I said, "you should know what she left out." Rachel let out a bitter laugh. "This is insane. You brought a folder?" "Yes." "Do you hear yourself?" "I hear myself clearly. That's why I'm using documents instead of volume." Alicia reached for the folder, then hesitated, looking at Rachel like she wanted permission. Rachel did not give it. Tom said, "Open it." Rachel's face turned hard. "Dad, open it," he repeated. Alicia pulled out the first page. The timeline. Her expression was irritated at first, like she was prepared to dismiss anything I had written. Then she saw the dates. The restaurant charge. Rachel's explanation beside it. The motel confirmation date. The last 4 digits of the joint card. "What is this?" Alicia asked Rachel. Rachel shook her head. "He has been tracking me. This is what I mean." I said, "The charges came from our joint account. The confirmation went to our shared email. The messages synced to a shared device. I did not follow you. I did not threaten you. I did not break into anything." Alicia kept reading. The room changed slowly. Not dramatically. No one gasped like people do in movies. It was worse than that. It was quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone is trying to get their face under control. Then Alicia reached the messages. "If he finally snaps, they'll all understand why I had to leave," she read softly. Rachel pushed back from the table. "That was taken out of context." Tom's eyes moved to her. "What context makes that better?" Rachel looked at me, not him. You were making me feel trapped. I asked if you wanted dinner, I said. Not just that. Everything. The way you watch. The way you get quiet. I got quiet because every sentence I said became evidence for a person you had already invented. Alicia flipped to the next page. Mason's reply. Just don't let it get messy for me, she read. Rachel's mother closed her eyes. Alicia looked at Rachel. You let us attack him knowing this was out there? Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. I was scared, she said finally. Of what? Alicia asked. Her voice had lost its sharpness. Of him, or of getting caught. Rachel started crying then. Real tears, maybe. I am not going to pretend I could tell anymore. Tom picked up the page with the motel confirmation. He read it slowly, then set it down with both hands flat on the table. Rachel, he said, answer the question. Is any of this fake? She wiped at her face. That's not fair. Is any of it fake? She looked around the room, waiting for someone to rescue her from the simplicity of that question. No one did. No, she whispered. Alicia sat back like the chair had suddenly lost its strength. I'm sorry, she said to me. Her voice cracked. I didn't know she left this much out. I nodded once. I did not say it was okay, because it was not. But I also knew Alicia had been fed a version of me that was designed to make her protective. Rachel turned on her. So that's it. You just believe him now. Alicia looked at her, stunned. You admitted it wasn't fake. That doesn't mean he gets to humiliate me. I said, you made this public when you invited people to judge me. I just gave them the missing pages. Her eyes narrowed. You wanted this. You wanted them all to look at me like this. No, I said. I wanted you to stop lying. You chose the room. I brought the truth into it. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my phone buzzed. It was another message in the group chat, this time from one of Rachel's friends, still typing like she knew what had happened. Christian, silence is not accountability. Rachel deserves safety and support. I looked at Rachel. Do you want to correct this, or should I send the same packet? Rachel laughed through tears. There. Again. Threats. Tom's voice cut through the room. Rachel, stop. She flinched. I sent the PDF to the group chat. The same limited evidence. Nothing more. Then I wrote, this is the context I was not given a chance to provide before accusations were made. I will not discuss private details beyond what is necessary to correct the false claims. Please do not contact me with accusations unless you have read it. The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, appeared again. No one knew what to say when the villain showed receipts and did not yell. There was one more person who needed to know, and I had debated it all morning. Dana. I did not know her well. I had met her maybe twice in group settings, enough to know she existed, and enough to know Mason was not some single man who had been lied to about Rachel's marriage. Dana was being lied to too. I did not send her the whole packet. I did not insult Mason. I did not ask her to take my side. I sent one short message. Dana, I am sorry to contact you like this. I am Rachel's husband. I have evidence that Rachel and Mason have been having an affair, including messages and charges connected to dates they met. I am sending only enough for you to know this is real. I won't contact you again unless you ask for clarification. Then I attached 2 screenshots and the motel confirmation with personal details redacted. She responded 20 minutes later. Thank you. Please don't send more right now. I need to deal with him. That was it. By late afternoon, Rachel got a message from Mason while she was still at her parents' house. I know because she read it and made this small broken sound that pulled everyone's attention to her. She tried to angle the phone away, but Alicia was beside her. Mason had written, I can't be part of this. You told me he wouldn't find out. I never said I was leaving anything. You knew I couldn't have this blow up. Rachel stood so fast the chair scraped against the floor. He had no right to contact Dana, she said, pointing at me. I said, Dana had a right to know. You ruined him. No. I informed the person he was deceiving. Mason ruined himself by participating. Rachel looked at me with pure hatred for about 3 seconds, then it collapsed into panic. That was when I understood Mason had never been a real plan. He was a fantasy with a phone number. He wanted secrecy, not consequences. He wanted Rachel as long as she stayed easy to hide. Rachel sat back down and covered her face. Her mother finally spoke. How long has this been going on? Rachel cried harder. I don't know. Months. I don't know. You know, I said quietly. She dropped her hands. Why are you doing this? Because every time you get vague, someone else fills in the blank in your favor. I'm done living under blanks. Tom rubbed a hand over his face. He looked older than he had when I arrived. Christian, he said, what do you want now? I looked at Rachel. Not at the room. Not at Alicia. Not at her mother. Not at the phone still buzzing with consequences. I wanted honesty before it got here. I said, now I want boundaries. Rachel wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. I said I was sorry. You said you were lonely. That's not the same thing. I was lonely, she snapped. I was confused. I felt like I was disappearing in this marriage. Mason made me feel like I mattered. The words would have hurt more if she had not used them already at dinner like a knife. Lonely explains a conversation, I said. It doesn't explain a hotel charge, a smear campaign, and a plan to make me look unstable. Her lips trembled. I never wanted you to get hurt like this. You wanted me to react badly enough that people would stop asking what you did. That is not the same as not wanting to hurt me. She looked down. For the first time all day, her anger seemed to run out of places to stand. We left separately. I went home, packed a bag, and stayed somewhere else that night. I kept everything in writing. When Rachel called, I let it go to voicemail. When she texted, I answered only what needed an answer. The first text came around 8 p.m. I can't believe you sent those messages to everyone. I replied, I sent them to the people you involved. You made me look disgusting. Your actions did that. The evidence corrected lies about me. Do you even want to fix this? I stared at that one for a while. The honest answer was complicated. There was a part of me that still remembered Rachel laughing with cereal in her mouth at midnight. There was a part of me that wanted the last year to be a fever that would break, leaving behind the woman I had loved. But wanting something to be reparable does not make it safe to touch. So I wrote, the only possible path forward would require no contact with Mason, repayment of misused joint funds where possible, a written correction to everyone you lied to, full transparency, individual counseling, and marriage counseling if I decide I am willing. Tears are not accountability. She did not answer for 10 minutes. Then she wrote, so you want to punish me forever? I closed my eyes. There it was. Not grief. Not responsibility. A negotiation over how quickly I could be pressured into pretending. I replied, I am not asking you to cry. I am asking you to repair what you broke. She wrote, you made everything public. I typed back, you made it public first by recruiting people against me. Her final text that night said, I don't know how to be married to someone who could expose me like that. I almost answered, I don't know how to be married to someone who made exposure necessary. But I did not send it. Some sentences feel good for 5 seconds and then become more material for the fire. Instead, I saved the thread and followed the attorney's advice. Over the next week, the fallout came in pieces. Alicia texted me again, this time without anger. I judged too fast. I'm sorry. I should have asked you first. One of Rachel's friends sent a long message apologizing for calling me abusive. I did not respond with warmth I did not feel. I wrote, thank you for saying that. Please keep me out of further discussion unless it involves correcting what was already said. Tom called once and said, I don't agree with how she handled any of this. I also hate that it got this far. I said, so do I. That was probably the most honest conversation anyone had that week. Mason disappeared from Rachel's life as quickly as he had entered it. Or maybe he tried to. Dana did not owe me updates, and I did not ask for them. The only thing I knew was that Rachel sent me one bitter message saying, I hope you're happy. He won't even talk to me now. I looked at that message in a grocery store parking lot, sitting behind the wheel while rain dotted the windshield. For a second, I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered that she was mourning the man who had helped her sharpen a story against me. I wrote back, that is between you and Mason. Do not make me responsible for the consequences of the truth. She did not answer. 2 weeks after the dinner, Rachel asked to meet at the house. I agreed only after making sure it would be during the day, and I told her I wanted the conversation summarized by text afterward. She called that paranoid. I called it necessary. She sat at the kitchen table where we used to eat takeout straight from containers when neither of us wanted to cook. Her face looked thinner. She wore no makeup. For a moment, I saw not a villain, not a mastermind, not the woman from the booth, but my wife. A person who had made terrible choices and was now sitting in the wreckage, surprised that wreckage had edges. I miss us, she said. That almost got me. Not because I believed it fully, but because I missed us too. I missed a version of us that might not have existed as cleanly as I remembered, But grief does not care about accuracy. I sat across from her. What do you miss? She frowned. What do you mean? Do you miss me? Or do you miss people not knowing what happened? Her eyes filled. That is unfair. Maybe. Answer anyway. She looked toward the window. I miss when things were simple. They were not simple. I was quiet. That's different. She started crying again, softer this time. I know I hurt you, she said. I know I made you look bad because I didn't want everyone looking at me. I know you weren't dangerous. I shouldn't have said that. It was the closest she had come to accountability. I waited. She swallowed. But you have to understand how humiliating it was. My dad saw everything. Alicia saw everything. My friends saw those messages. And just like that, the apology bent back toward her. Rachel, I said, you are still more upset that people know than you are that you did it. That's not true. Then send the correction. She went still. What? Send a message to everyone you told I was controlling and dangerous. Tell them you lied. Tell them I did not threaten you, did not cut off essentials, and did not abuse you. Tell them you used joint money for the affair and tried to make my reaction part of your excuse. Her face hardened in the exact way I had learned to recognize. You want me to destroy myself? No, I want you to stop destroying me. They already know enough. They know because I proved it, not because you admitted it. She stood and paced to the counter, then back again. I can't write that. Why? Because it's humiliating. So was being called abusive by people you lied to. She turned on me. I said I was sorry. What else do you want from me? Blood. There it was again. Accountability, to Rachel, meant feeling bad in front of me. Repair meant something else, and she did not want to do that part. I stood up too. I wanted a wife who could be honest before she got caught. I wanted a partner who did not need an audience to make herself feel innocent. I wanted the last 11 years to matter enough that you would not gamble my reputation for sympathy. But right now, what I want is separation. She stared at me. You're serious? Yes. You're going to throw away 11 years? I let that sit between us for a second. No, I said. I'm going to stop letting 11 years be used as a reason to accept whatever you do next. Rachel's mouth twisted. You wanted control of the story. You wanted control of the story, I said. I wanted the truth. We are not fighting for the same thing. She grabbed her purse from the chair and walked to the door. For a second, I thought she might say one final cruel thing. Instead, she just looked back at the kitchen, at the table, at the ordinary room where we had eaten breakfast and argued about groceries and sorted mail for more than 10 years. I was lonely, she said one last time. I nodded. And I was there. You just needed me to be the villain more than you needed to talk to me. She left without slamming the door. That almost made it worse. After that, I started the legal process. I kept records of every message. I followed the advice I had paid for. I did not post about her. I did not call Mason. I did not send more evidence unless someone who had already accused me directly needed correction. The joint bills stayed paid. The discretionary payments stayed stopped. My paycheck stayed separate. Rachel did eventually send a correction, but not the one I asked for. It was full of soft language. I may have presented things emotionally. Christian and I both made mistakes. The situation was more complicated than I shared. I read it once and felt nothing except tired. So I sent my own final reply to the group chat. I will not debate vague statements. The claims that I was dangerous, abusive, or financially controlling were false. I have already provided enough evidence to correct those claims. Rachel and I are separating. And I am asking everyone to stop contacting me about the marriage unless it involves a practical matter. Then I muted the chat. The house became strange after that. Quiet in a different way. Rachel's half-finished coffee stopped appearing on the counter. There were no cold fries in the takeout bag because I only ordered for one. The spare room slowly became less of an emergency shelter and more of a place where I could sleep without listening for footsteps in the hallway. I missed her sometimes. That is the part people do not like to hear in stories like this. They want betrayal to turn love off cleanly, like a switch. It does not. You can know someone is unsafe for you and still remember how their hand felt in yours during a boring grocery run. You can be done and still grieve. But I did not miss being edited into a monster. I did not miss measuring every word because Rachel might turn a normal question into evidence. I did not miss funding charges I was not supposed to notice. I did not miss being told that calm meant cruelty by someone who was waiting for anger to use as cover. Maybe I was calculated. I will not pretend otherwise. I saved screenshots. I printed statements. I built a timeline. I separated finances before Rachel understood how much I knew. I exposed the truth to the exact people she had pulled into the lie. But calculation was the only safe tool left once she decided my character was part of her exit plan. I did not expose her to entertain strangers. I did not post her pain for applause. I did not send private details to people who had no reason to know. I answered accusations with evidence, and I stopped where the truth stopped being necessary. Rachel wanted everyone to believe she had escaped a cold, controlling husband. The truth was simpler and uglier than that. She cheated, used our money, planned to make me look unstable, and expected me to care more about protecting her image than protecting my own life. For years, I thought keeping peace meant absorbing the uncomfortable parts of a marriage in silence. Now I understand silence can become a blank page someone else writes on. So yes, maybe I was cold at that dinner. Maybe I was cold at the kitchen table. Maybe every word I chose sounded too measured for a man whose marriage was falling apart. But I was cold because every warm reaction I had left was something she was ready to use against me. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.